The Courage to Lead, episode 279. Hey, Coach Harlan here. Welcome back to the podcast. Hope you guys are having just a darn good week. I'm having a great week, and I'm excited to introduce you to my guest today. Please help me welcome Jamie Wood. Jamie Wood is a succession strategist and quiet power coach, helping second generation business owners lead with calm clarity, not inherited chaos. With years of firsthand experience managing and modernizing a multi-million pound family dental practice in the UK, Jamie now supports owners navigating the unique pressures of legacy businesses. His signature approach, the Systemised Sanity Framework, helps overwhelmed leaders free up 20 plus hours a week, reduce burnout by 40%, and build a values based business that doesn't run them into the ground. He's known for blending systems thinking with deep emotional insight, making him a go to coach for those who lead from behind the scenes. When he's not working one to one with client owners and legacy driven founders, you'll find Jamie building frameworks, guiding quiet leaders on LinkedIn, and enjoying life offline as a devoted husband and dad. Jamie, welcome to the program.
Hi, Helen. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Jamie, just so everybody knows, Jamie and I are in a coaching group together. We both have a business coach, which I advise everybody in business to have a business coach. We have a business coach, and that's where Jamie and I met. And when I heard about what he's doing, what he's working on, I wanted to have him on the podcast. So yeah, welcome, Jamie. So family businesses, they are kind of a beast all their own, right? Um, eh, Tell me some of the struggles of being part of a family run business.
Well, as I've had quite for 13 years of being in a family business, um, and it's not just that it was one family member, it could be multiple family members, so brothers, sisters, wives, fathers, children, um, and that just brings such a big dynamic. And depending on what role you're in, like I was in an owner manager role, so I was pretty much managing all these different family members, including my own dad, who was the owner of the business, and it felt like I was, his dad, the way that I was sort of managing. So it become the dynamic is so different.
All right. So, Jane, what's a myth about family business leadership that you wish more people would challenge? What's one of
Mm.
the big myths out there?
That there's this generational wealth of passing on this. I think you could see it could get quite taken in by sort of the corporate generational big businesses where I'm going to pass this through the family, and and they're all onto these big salaries and everything. But from my experience, the owner, especially in small businesses, wants to retain the wealth. They don't really want the child to be having what they have. Um, I don't know if there's a resentment towards that they're the ones that the founder they built the business. It's their money rather than it's the business's money. So I think the myth
Mm,
that I've would like to challenge is that of how hard it is for the child coming into that next generation of being able to have that lifestyle that have seen their parent have, uh,
right.
and not having to wait until there's an inheritance passed on to get the
Yeah.
wealth. So I think that's the myth that the generational wealth aspect.
Yeah. And I've worked with people like that, and I don't know if it's fear based or what it is, but it's like, hey, I built this, you build your own, right?
Mm.
I've worked with people that I used to work at Lockheed Aircraft out in California, and one of the guys I worked with, I asked him, "Hey, show me how you do this," right? Woodworker, the guy was phenomenal, all the stuff that he did, and he said, "I'm not just going to give you my knowledge. It took me 17 years, whatever, to learn this. I'm not just going to give it to you." It's like, but it's not going to diminish anything that you have, you're actually helping me out. So I can kind of understand, people like that. I mean, I don't feel that way. I mean, if I have something, I'm willing to give or help. So yeah,
And
that's odd.
I don't know if it's a generation. I mean, I always kind of thought growing up maybe it was a generational thing of what my dad, um, he didn't have like wealth from as a
Yeah.
child. He was very lucky that his education was paid for by the government, and he became an orthodontist, not by spending lots of money to become an orthodontist. Like nowadays, you have to have a big investment, and education was free. Back in the 70s in England, and so there's kind of like this hoarding of wealth of knowledge of, well, I don't want to lose it. I don't that fear thing of being taken away. I suppose there's a bit of an imposter syndrome thing of wow, I'm going to be found out that I didn't really earn earn this, but he did. He worked very hard for what he did. But then there's this as an oxymoron of him wanting me to not have the wealth that he had in the business, like go out and get your own, but not letting me go out and get my own. So it was,
Hmm.
you're working for me, you're doing what I say, but you're going to be on less than what I pay everybody else because you're family. And it's very difficult to be able to make the life that you want, to be able to, now
Sure.
I've become a parent. So, I've got children. And I found that being able to support children and just having an average lifestyle, not a luxurious lifestyle, challenging in a business where you there is no real affluence.
Yeah.
So that's I think that there's a lot of fear. I think, and whether it's generational or not, that's kind of how I thought of it. But I think there's a big thing of the being found out of
Yeah.
that the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So I have to have empathy for that.
Yeah. Imposter syndrome. Yeah, that's big. All right. Well, there's a lot of stuff that I want to dive into. I want to talk more about your frameworks, uh, your systematized sanity framework, which I love. I think it's awesome the way you've built this up. Want to talk about that? Want to talk about who you work with, how you help them, some of the things you're finding, some advice you may have for people who are in family-run businesses, legacy businesses. A lot of stuff to cover. But before we get started, Jamie, I've got 10 icebreaker questions that I like to ask all my guests. Now, listeners know these are the questions made famous on the TV show Inside the Actor's Studio, where the host James Lipton asks these same questions of his Hollywood guests from TV, film, and stage. And I figure if they're good enough for the Hollywood elite, they're certainly good enough for my guests. So, Jamie, if you're ready, I've got 10 questions for you, sir.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I love that show.
All right. Question number one. What is your favorite word?
Oh, my favorite word. I think I'm going to go for fantasy. I think that whenever I hear that word, um, it just really takes me out of my day to day and into that
Yeah,
cinematic world that I like
nice.
to live in. I'm really a bit of a dreamer, and that for me is where I could live if as I could live in my dreams, in my daydreams. So that fantasy element of something exciting, um, and
Nice.
yeah.
Nice. Okay. What is your least favorite word?
Oh, depends on how it's been used, but Jamie can can it usually means somebody using my first name that
Yeah.
I've got to do something. So
Oh,
I think that's a trigger. If it's my wife saying Jamie,
yep.
it's another chore that I need to be doing. So
Yep.
that one.
Yeah. I remember my mom stepping out the back door of the house and screaming my name. It's like, oops, I'm in
Yeah,
trouble. All right. Question three. What turns you on?
I just love helping. So I think I think being able to give and to help for me, um, I will help anybody if they ask for it. I won't, force that help on them. But I think that that I'm in a position um, that I've can help. So I think that drives me. Um, yeah,
Cool. And what turns you off?
meanness. I really can't stand meanness. I think there's a deliberate intention to sort of hurt somebody else. It's I just don't understand that. It's just not me. It's not in my nature. It's the opposite of me, really. So I think that really turns me off.
What sound or noise do you love?
Oh, I love hearing my children when they're saying "I love you." Um, it's amazing. I mean, it's the best feeling ever, hearing them say that.
Yeah. All right. What sound or noise do you hate?
Oh, again, my children when they're screaming, when they are fighting, that whinging, the
Yep.
fighting, it just goes through me. They just the it's just the tone, the decibel of what they're doing. It's just so but that really, that gets to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Question 7. What is your favorite curse word?
Well, being English, I quite like bollocks. It's an interesting, it's a silly one. It's not
Yeah.
too offensive, and it just sounds so English.
Yeah.
Of when you hear it out loud, it just sounds it just sounds silly. So,
That's
but I
funny.
do like it.
Yep. No, that's good. Um, Question 8. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
But well, going back to that fantasy word. So as a child, I absolutely loved creative writing. So story writing, I could just write for for hours. I was in my own world. So if I hadn't have gone into coaching of what is my dream, my passion, is creative writing, is building those worlds, being able to be lost and in that as a writer. um, for me it's quite a selfish thing of I just love you know being in that world, writing that for me, and if other people like it, great.
Yeah. Awesome. Do you have a book coming out?
I don't have a book, not yet.
Not yet. Hey,
um,
there's still time. There's still time.
yeah,
All
with
right.
plenty to write about.
Yeah. All right. Question 9. What profession would you not like to do?
Oh, I don't think I'd be very good as a prison guard. I think I've got too soft a nature to
Yeah.
do it. Yeah, there's something about I don't think that'd be a good fit for me.
Yeah. That could be problematic. Yes.
Let them all out of themselves.
Exactly. All right. Final question, Jamie. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Not bad, not bad. You, yeah, you tried. Um,
No. Good job. You probably said, why didn't you write that book?
yes,
Yes.
yes, or something like also, I do exist, Jamie. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
do.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good
Uh,
deal. All right. All right. So we're going to take a short break. When we come back, I want to talk about how you got your start, how you got to where you are now, who you work with, and how you help them. We're going to talk about your frameworks that you've created, which I think are awesome. Um, and at some point, we're going to transition into courage and leadership. All right.
great.
So, listeners, we're going to be talking about all that and probably a lot more right after this. So, stick with us. And I'm back with my guest, Jamie Wood. Jamie, thanks again for jumping on the podcast with us and stuff. I've been anxious to talk to you about um, your frameworks and all the things that you've built for your coaching and stuff. I think they're awesome, and you put a lot of work into them. But let's talk about how you got your start. So your dad was an orthodontist, right? Had his own practice. How and when did you start working in the practice?
So I started in 2012, and I came in at the very bottom. level of I was never meant to run the practice. So I came in as just as a help at the time, and his wife had passed, um, and he was just really struggling being able to manage both the clinical side, the managing the business, as well as as a parent. So I was kind of came in as a helping hand, and it was quite clear, within the first couple of days that he was so out of sync with what was going on in the back office. So
Mm.
like the management, the admin team. So he was only very focused on what's happening in surgery, whereas I was seeing everything that he couldn't. Um, and I had no experience of managing a practice, but there was obviously it was my dad. It was my dad's business, and I just said, no, I'm in charge now. And that's quite an assertive thing for me to do. I'm quite a shy person. So for me to actually to tell all these, and that the manager that was 13 years into the job at the time, no, I'm your boss now. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and I suppose there's a bit of ignorance is bliss as well, because I didn't really know about HR policies and things. Otherwise, it
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have gone that way. But at the time, I was just no, they're just taking advantage. They were stealing. Um, they were
Wow.
inflating their salaries that he didn't realise,
Sure.
and that was for me, I suppose, my beginning of entrepreneurship. But I didn't realise that at the time that's what it was. It was just trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
But that was really getting into business management, leadership, and
Yeah.
um, so that was 2012, and
Wow.
I made mistakes, but
Yeah.
but those mistakes, they help shape you, don't they? So you
Sure.
learn from them, and I always wanted to make sure that the mistakes that I made weren't too big. So I was trying to be cautious, but I was very committed. For the first few years, I didn't have any breaks. I
Mm.
just, it was 7 days a week, just learning everything from being the IT guy to networking the building to, didn't have a HR company, so I was learning,
Mm.
that side of it, writing contracts, and there was no marketing support, so I was building his
Yeah.
business from that side.
Wow. But
And
that wasn't really your background. What was your background when you came in?
so before that, I was working in uh, kind of like a call center. So I was telephone support for medical pharmaceutical trials. So we would manage the technology side of it that told the nurse which tablet to give the patient, whether it was a placebo or an active drug, to keep the studies blind. And I was there for a few years, and I didn't like me. I didn't really like being on the phones. So when my dad offered me an opportunity to come and work with him, I leapt at it. It was a great,
Yeah.
it felt like it was a lifeline. And so doing that for 12 years, and then for 12 years, and then the idea was that I was going to take over the practice. So I was very committed, you know, 24/7 on call, doing everything that was expected of me, working. I never had a holiday where I didn't do the payroll or work or any kind of small business where you're doing everything.
Wow.
Um, and it was about 9 years in. I think it was the pandemic. Oh no, sorry, the pandemic hadn't happened yet. It was a year before the pandemic, and my dad said, "No, I want to sell. I want to sell the business." My heart was just went through the floor. I was like, I've just
Mhm.
committed so much of my life, sacrificed so much to work for this man, for this business, of this opportunity for this life that I never was going to have working in a call center.
Yeah.
So it was my dream. And I thought, wow, I'm going to have a business, a successful business. Um, And I just thought that that's what we were both in sync with, and it changed his mind. But unfortunately for him, the business wasn't in a position that it could be sold. So
Really? Yeah.
um, then the pandemic happened, and that went on for a few years, and that changed a lot of
Sure.
regulations in the healthcare. Um, so it was just a very stressful period um, of us both going in different directions. Our values were in sync for so long. Our mission was the same, and then it just split. We both had very opposing views of the business. I wanted to grow it, and he didn't want to grow it. He wanted out, and now there's a challenge, especially with being a parent who's coming to retirement age and wanting them to be well and healthy and safe, and also having the responsibility. Well, the business needs to keep going, needs to grow, it needs to be able to pay when the costs increase, and and the salaries. And so it was around that time in the pandemic that I asked him, well, what about me then? What shall I do? So we need your exit plan. You need to work on your plan B.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's when I discovered coaching. I didn't actually know what coaching really was. I just thought it was kind of like mentoring and consulting. And I did my training, and I absolutely fell in love with it. It was just the first time I'd ever discovered something that was just for me, that I was good at, that it clicked straight away. And it was very much in service of somebody else. It was helping somebody get through whatever challenge, obstacle, serious difficulty.
Yeah.
And it just ticked so many boxes for me. And
Nice.
that was
Well,
the
and you're in a unique position too, because that's one thing they talk to us in coaching is to niche down, right? Don't try to help everybody. Pick a certain segment of business that that you can help, and niching down to legacy businesses, second generation, third generation owners of home or family businesses. That's pretty niched, and you've got a unique perspective now on that. That's
yeah.
awesome.
And I'd never really looked at I'd never looked into that for us. I'd never thought to find a family business coach. When we were going through it, that would have really helped with a lot of the communication struggles that we've
Hmm.
had. And that was the biggest problem that we've ever had, as me and my dad, is the communication. So even though we were in sync for many years, we've just never been able to communicate to each other because of all the baggage of being the father and son
Right.
that's come with it. I mean, I'm 45, so there's decades of you know unanswered questions, or why did you do that to me?
Hmm.
That that inner child trauma that doesn't really, you don't have to be abused or of anything to have trauma as a child. It just ingrains on you for whatever happened. Maybe didn't pick me up from school one day, and that was it. It was in my
Right.
subconscious of you didn't love me. But
Yeah.
there's and there's just this expectation. It's just this unspoken expectation that you're my son. You must do what I say, and also on the other side of he's my dad. I must do everything for him and not me. And
Right.
just deplete, that's where the burnout and the overwhelm really come in, because
Yeah.
when you're doing something for somebody else's vision, somebody else's goals, and you're not doing it for yourself, it's just pure giving without any reciprocation. You're not filling your cup in any way. And that's where
That's
I
it.
just lived in this burnout phase for years. So I learned a lot. I suppose I went through the fires, the trials, to come out the other side of, okay, well, I know what I'm doing. I know why I'm here. I know what my purpose is and how I can help people in that situation and get out of that overwhelm, be able to have those better communication, with their parent,
Yeah.
um, so that mum, I just don't want other people to have the relationship go. as badly as what's happened between me and my dad.
Right.
Uh,
Well,
it's
communication is huge for, to me, leadership is communication. If you're not a good communicator, you can't be a good leader, right? And if you are a good leader, then you've got that communication down. It's tough, like I said, working with family, um, because you communicate on a different level too. You can't just say, "Hey, I need you to do X," without thinking about all the past history that comes into it. So it's a touchy situation, but uh, and expectations. Like I said, you come in thinking, "Wow, I could take over this whole business now that I've got the back office running right. Now that I've got this working smoothly, this is kind of my creation too." And if that expectation wasn't shared, then you missed.
Yeah, and that's what I keep seeing and finding from other people that have been in my situation, where they've been promised something so that they stay in their role, they stay in line. Like one day, all this will be yours, or
Right.
when you get the inheritance, so don't worry about the pay rise now. It's gonna become dividends to you later on. It's this bit of a carrot dangling
Yeah.
thing. Whereas for me, it was this massive carrot to begin with of you're going to have this uh, uh, amazing business that's already successful. Um, but then I just got loads of stick
Yeah.
with no carrot. And, and then it feels very isolating. It's very alone. And obviously, there's other members of family, and not necessarily have to be in the business, but there's relationships are impacted outside of work. There is no cutoff. Work,
Yeah.
home, it's just work, and
And so whatever happened to the business? Is it still operating?
so the business is still operating. I've exited the business now after 13 years, and it's when I helped grow it to a seven-figure revenue. Um, it's got other orthodontists in there doing the work. My dad's retired. He's exited clinically, and he's now having to just sort of oversee it while it goes through a sale. Um,
Okay.
but I gave everything that I could, and it's unfortunate that I wasn't prepared for how much of a toll it was going to be on the relationship between me and my dad.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a strategy about that. I didn't have the right skills or tool set to be able to communicate with him in a way that wasn't, from a son, perspective. I didn't have. It was every time I was speaking to him, I was a son talking to his dad
Right. Right.
about business, and not as a business partner talking to another partner of this has to happen. These are the figures. This is what is going on. You cannot make those choices,
Right.
without this impact. And even though I knew some of his decisions were poor, I went along with
Yeah.
them because he was my dad.
But if
And
he didn't understand what was going on in the back office, he may not have been aware of it. And now these things come up that might have felt like he was to blame,
mm,
or something like that. You know what I mean? So that's awkward.
yeah, and that was a big part of my life. Um, but it wasn't my purpose to be there to stay.
Yeah,
So it's take what I've learned and
exactly.
pass it on.
And you learned what can go wrong in the back offices, how to put things back on track, what it needs to run these type of businesses and everything like that. I know you described leading a business you didn't start, like steering a ship built by other people. Um, for the second generation leaders trying to take the helm, what's the most common blind spot, you think?
I think that thing of not communicating from a perspective of what your role is within the business. It's speaking to them as family, and and it's very hard not to, because I remember my first day on the job, then my dad said to me, and because his title is doctor, you don't have to call me dad. You can call me Dr. Wood. And that really hurt.
Hmm.
It was really, because I took it from point of, well, you're my dad. Well, I've always called you dad. I mean, and he said you can call
Yeah.
me Dr. Wood or Robbie. So I can't. That you're my dad. So it was straight away from that first day of that was just loaded with why doesn't he want me to call him dad? I took it personally. And it's having those clear, defined roles and responsibilities and be able to stay in that role in work time. Um, and if seeing it from his point of view, he was probably just trying to put me at ease. This might be uncomfortable for you. I'm giving you a way of being able to
Yeah.
communicate, but I didn't see it from that point of view. So I think
Well, and that's yeah. My wife and I have worked together on projects before, and I don't just walk in and say, "Hey, honey," blah 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 blah. Right? I address her by her title or her last name, like everybody else is, so that it's kind of seamless. Seamless.
mm,
When we're at home, it's different, but in front of other people, I always call her by first name. She wasn't doctor or anything like that, but you know what I'm saying. It's kind of makes that differentiation. Hey, we're here, we're at work, and we all talk to each other like we would at work. And then at home or outside, we can do that, or in a private office, it's a little bit different. But
absolutely.
yeah, setting those expectations on these are the roles that we play. Here's how we will address each other. Here's how we will, handle things. Um, I think that needs to be nailed down pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, and I think it's the um, playing too loose as well with the own. If you are in an ownership position, that you're not doing it properly with, if you're going to have meetings, have minutes. And
Yeah.
if you're having conversations, these are official meetings about the business. This isn't just sitting around like the dinner table
Right.
talking about work and nothing, and it's just too casual. And then the things come up of, well, you never told me, or you never said that. So, well, I did. We were at dinner and I told you about it,
Yeah.
but it wasn't documented.
Great.
Wasn't recorded in the right way. So that is a massive issue for
Sure.
cause a massive issue for us, because that when that trust breaks, because he didn't, if you can't record the data in a way that's robust and accurate and time stamped, it just becomes another argument between family and
Sure.
he said, she said.
Yeah. No, I think that's huge. Documenting those things. Absolutely. So is this all the things that found their way into your frameworks, your systemized sanity framework?
So it's all So it's all about protecting the obviously the relationship, but the because it's all different layers of where you are right now in your business. So you have your startup stage, your growth stage, your scale stage, and within those stages, there's hiccups and there's problems and overwhelm. So depending on where you are at in your journey and your struggle, my framework sort of intervene or help nurture to match those energy levels. So for me, the way that I approach everything is around the well-being of the person as well as the company. So
Hmm.
I'm very big on organizational health, but that starts with you. And so we look at how to make sure that your energy and time are protected as the most valuable sort of assets that you have.
Nice.
Especially if you're the one that's generating the income and something happens, then there's a lot of other lives that are affected by that as well as the health of the owner.
Yeah.
My job when I was at the practice was my dad is the star player. It's my job to protect him, protect
Mhm.
his energy, protect his time, make sure that the business is profitable, but also that he's not burning himself out to an early grave. So
Sure.
everything I was doing was from that perspective of, right, I don't want my dad to die, and I don't want him to, have a heart attack. So that's how I came at it. The communication side, that's obviously a really big missing piece for me of what I didn't focus, I wasn't aware of, I didn't focus on.
Yeah.
So now when I look at it, it's making sure there's holistically that the relationship between the family members is also a priority as well.
Yep.
It's we don't want to lose that. It's not worth the business isn't
Right.
the success of the business isn't worth the breakdown of the family unit
Right.
in
Absolutely.
my eyes anyway.
No, absolutely. Yeah, the family's got to come first. Um, so let's dive in a little bit on the frameworks you have. You have a part of the framework you call the SANE framework. That's an acronym. Walk us
Yeah.
through that. What is SANE, and what do those steps help these people do?
So we've saying it's systemize, automate, navigate, and energize. So with systemize, it's all about looking at where you are now. If you're in say you're in that overwhelm, things are spiraling, cash flow is going out the door, um, staff are all quitting, whatever. There's a problem. And I went through that a lot, and you need to be able to stabilize that by looking at your systems. So what is not working? And if it's a communication breakdown, then that's the first thing we need to look at of how are you communicating, if at all, and what is the better way to be able to communicate so that you're um, being able to bring everybody with you or ask for support if you're struggling. So it's all the systems side of it isn't necessarily about technology and IT.
Right.
It's just the way, how are you being? What is your way of being in this moment? How are you showing up? How are your team showing up? And
Yeah.
this is your audit sort of stage of, okay, well, let's start documenting things that need to be done, the repetitive processes, and what can be delegated out. If it can get off your plate, if you're doing too much, for instance, what can
Sure.
somebody else do? And creating the
Well, and how they do it, right? Systems, when you put systems in place, it makes everything repeatable, like a recipe, right? If you get this recipe out to people, they all end up with the same chocolate cake, you know?
yeah,
Putting that system in place to know when we start this process, this is going to be the output of the process. And every time we do it, we get this output. If we do it 10 times, we get 10 outputs. So, having that system in place, it I think it helps people be a little bit more calm because they know, follow the system. It works every time. They don't have to think about what to do. You just kind of follow the process and let it go. But so many businesses are afraid, I think, um, to put in systems. They think technology. The minute you say a system, they think, oh, this is going to cost me millions. It's like, no, it's a checklist that everybody uses the same checklist. It's a
yeah.
step-by-step instruction that everybody uses the same steps. That's what systems are, and that's what systems can do for your company, right? Makes them manageable, measurable, repeatable, scalable, trainable, and the business sustainable. So yeah, I think they're important.
And it works at any stage of where you are in the business. So your systems, not aren't necessarily going to be the same systems at different stages, but
Sure.
you need systems to be able to follow a proven path. And if something is bottlenecked, then at least you know on the system of where to start to look to change.
Yep.
And as soon as I've ever tried to introduce technology as the as the immediate answer or the quick fix, that's where the
Right.
resistance.
Yeah.
So that's my first sort of stage. Get everybody on everybody looking at how to reduce the stress, reduce the tension,
Mhm.
and get that overwhelm reduced as much as possible.
Sure.
Adding technology on top of overwhelms can be, you know,
Yeah.
Not the best.
No.
But then
But
that's
then you
sort of,
talk about automating, right?
yeah. So then once you've got that stabilized um, operation, where it's then looking, okay, so where are the what can be automated, what can be completely off our list, and it could be that the technology that you've all got in place already is inefficient, or you're doubling up or tripling up on the amount of programs that you have, where one program could do all three. I mean, the advances now in AI, um, a lot of these software programs and subscriptions are going to get cancelled. So,
Yeah.
um, and it's just whatever you can automate. If it's in within your budget, do it. There's no. It doesn't make sense to have heavy labor intensive work where the technology is a fraction of the price.
Right.
Because there's still plenty of work to be done. We're not getting rid of the people. Um, so luckily for me, I've managed to meet some amazing automation experts over the years, and we automated our whole patient journey. So from the initial sort of lead flow, lead capture, all the way into converting that lead into an inquiry, into a consultation with the doctor, to the follow up, the automated follow up with the emails, with the nurturing,
Nice.
all the way to the
Yeah.
conversion, to the payments, everything that I could automate, I did, and luckily for me, I was always be able to learn off people that I brought in to help, so that I could do it myself. Um, so that's a big thing. So once we can automate, and that's more off our list, then we can move on to the next step of navigate. So navigate for me is always about our North Star. Okay, where are we? Where is it that we're going? But more importantly, where do you want to be? Like,
Right.
why do you want to get there? What is it all for? So if it's about having a legacy business that can be passed on to future generations, then everything that we do is towards making that dream come
Mhm.
true for the children, for their children. We're building a business that's profitable to be able to pass on. Um, if it's a if that's not the case, if it's just that you're wanting a business to sell as quickly as possible, then you have to be real with that, um, and that means you can't take all the money out of the bank. If you
Right.
if you're wanting to have a business that sells, that money in the bank and everything that you're doing with all your team has to look good on paper,
Yep.
or
Yep.
for the buyer, that as healthy as possible. If you're taking all the money out, then you're going to make that transition very unappealing to
Exactly.
in. And I think that's a big problem for a lot of business owners, that they see the bank account as their cash bank, their personal bank
Sure.
account.
Yeah.
Um, and that's something that should be taught in schools.
Should. Absolutely. Yeah. Reinvest some of that money back into the business, right?
Yeah, yeah, and keep money a tax account, things like that. Having
Right.
savings for your
Right.
tax. If you keep constantly spending all your money and then hoping that when your tax bill comes and it's you know you can pay it, that's not a great way to be.
Yeah.
So with the navigate, it's the way that I come at it is very much from what I call the wise elder self. So it's looking using visualization, looking at your beliefs. What is it that you really actually means something to you? What is it that's going to drive you? What's going to get you out of bed? Because go through those rough bumps and keep going. And if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing to hit that
Yeah.
goal, then it's never really gonna happen in a way that's enjoyable for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. The
so
why
I,
is important. Yep.
so I take people through a visualization sort of exercise where they can meet their wise elder self, really get that clarity of what it is that they really want, not what they think people would, what other people would say that they should have. What is it
Right.
that's and we make that a reality and everything. Then that's so where we can build in our habits and rituals, our rhythm to be able to every day be purposeful, intentional with everything we're doing to make sure that we're on in alignment with that. Um,
Good.
and then finally, just energize. And this is all about the work-life balance, the energy levels, protecting that
Right.
time and energy, making sure that you're um, rested, that you're doing the work that lights you up. Now that's the really big part is actually doing things that you're good at. What is the
Yeah.
value that you bring that is your contribution to the business that makes you happy? If you're not happy doing it, then we've got to look at why you're not happy doing it. If this is your
Yeah.
contribution in the business, should you be doing something else? And that's quite a big thing, being able to protect that energy and time. And once we've
Absolutely.
got those four elements in place of stability, energy, knowing where we're going, tracking the metrics to make sure that we're on track to get there and we can adjust. Then that's like I say, there's your foundational elements
Yeah.
towards having a life of purpose, of health, and quality relationships.
Exactly. No, and I think that energized part is the piece that a lot of businesses and business owners miss, right? They understand the numbers, they understand, systems, but keeping track of are you healthy? Because
Mhm.
the stress can kill you. You know, the stress can do it. What are some of the second generation leaders? What are some of the things that leak their energy aside from just the family dynamics and the regular things in business? Um, are
It's
the
the
things that are really hurting them, and how do they spot those before the burnout sets in?
it's the overwork. It really is. It's down to like I was easily doing 16, 18 hours a day. Um, and on the weekends, no holidays because I was just so focused. I was just like, I've got to make this work. I've got to prove to my dad that I can do this. And I got to prove to myself that, as well, that I'm not just being gifted a position, that
Yeah,
I'm proving myself. So I think there's the element of that overwork is there. And for a lot of people, I think it's quite common for business owners to say, in the first few years, they'd never have a holiday because they just haven't got the money or they
right.
think that they don't deserve it. So they've got to keep working and but it's just short term. That's really short term thinking because obviously the healthier you are, the more energy that you've got, then the better the results that you can give, more impact in
Yeah,
shorter time. Um, yeah, so the energy part is a big factor of something that I was in burnout for years. It's not just
yeah,
something that it happens and it's like a week or two and you're back on
yeah,
it. You're just in it. You're in that burn. You can't get out. You're trapped in this because you are just overworked, and the expectations are so high that you put on yourself. Of, I must deliver for my dad, or whoever is the next
right,
whoever
right,
the founder is, and that takes a toll on the relationships. I mean, when I first was working for my dad, I was single, didn't have any children, so I was like the perfect option for being that kind of overworking person, and I was drinking a lot. I was dealing with the stress and
right,
the attention by drinking, and
yeah,
that's quite a common thing in England for people to like a drink. Um,
sure,
but when I met my wife, she doesn't really drink, and that sort of had the impact on me of well, I need to change my lifestyle. And when we had children, I completely stopped.
sure.
So everything that I was doing, I was very tired and for different reasons of
Hmm.
being a parent. I didn't have the energy and the time to be able um, to work 16-hour days anymore because just the time wasn't there. So I had less time because I was working and being a parent. So I had to develop more new systems to be able to balance that of how do I protect my time and
Right.
energy so that I could be a good dad. I didn't want to be an absent dad,
No.
that's what I
Right.
had. And I didn't want to go through that. And that built a big resentment between me and my dad of, well, your wife should be looking after the kids. But I, I rebelled against that. Well, no,
Sure.
I don't want to miss out on seeing my children. So I won't. I made that decision, and it was a big rift that was caused between that. And I'm a working parent.
Yeah. So the second generation leaders, if they're listening right now and they're thinking, "Hey, I'm not sure this business fits me anymore."
Yeah, and that's a
What
really big
what
thing.
advice? Yeah, what advice would you give? What would you say to them? What do you think they want, or what would you want them to hear?
I would get really clear on is that coming from a place of fear of of being in that relationship that with that say with the parent. So is it that you're not wanting to do that role because of something that's unspoken that you haven't had those difficult conversations with the parent to say that you're not happy because it could be something from a legacy issue of within the family. Like for me, that was a a very true thing that we had all this unspoken history that we never resolved. We never even tried to resolve. Um, because if you're missing out on having this business through fear of how you're not showing up with your parent, communicating with another family member, that's one. Yeah, that's something that can be resolved and still have business. If you're dead set on, okay, this is not for me, I want to be living in Australia, um, you know, coral sea diving or something, fantastic, um, then wow, go for, then maybe
Yeah.
that's your passion, your dream, follow that, of course.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that a lot of it just comes down to the friction between the family members of it becoming too exhausting. They don't want to have those uncomfortable conversations. They don't want to have the drama. They don't want to have the stress of it. They just want to be able to live their lives in peace. So they would rather walk away than try to sort of deal with that. Then I would say
Yeah.
don't rush to it. Um, Speak to somebody to be able to help getting that clarity of what it is that you
Exactly.
really want and how can you fix it if you do want to stay.
Sure. Yeah, get a neutral third party in, you know,
Mm,
a coach who can come in and say, "Well, have you considered? Have you discussed? Are you on the
yeah,
same page when it comes to this?" Setting those expectations is critical because you walk in with one expectation, the legacy parent, whoever, has another expectation. If those don't match, it's never going to work out.
yeah,
So yeah, definitely get somebody in to help kind of walk through all this.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it really
Um,
been a big help.
so the folks that you're working with right now, how long is your program? Is it a small chunks? Is it something that needs to happen over years? To me, I don't think any of this stuff is something you can just do in a month. This is going to take some work to get all this stuff together. How do you work with them?
So I'd like to give them the option if it's something that they're really in real trouble and they really need to be able to stabilize like what's going on, then we'd look at a quick 3 months just to get the out of the overwhelm. Let's
Right.
just focus on the S part. Let's just get the systems in place. And before we even try to like add on anything else, just let's just focus on what's the immediate stressor and get that resolved. The beauty of it that with anything, the more that the longer that you go for,
Hmm.
the better the result. So know,
Okay.
um, so I like to give the option. So it's either let's look at 3 months of getting the stability there,
Nice.
and then it's a long term relation, it's a partnership really of being able to just keep going until you don't need me anymore. And
Yeah.
that's what I want. I want you to be able to not need any help.
Nice. Yeah. Stop the bleeding and get those systems in place to kind of stabilize the business and then take it from there. But that's critical. Very cool. So, Jamie, if people want to get in touch with you and find out more about the programs you offer and everything like that, uh, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
I've got a LinkedIn my LinkedIn profile is
Okay.
my best way to um, see my content because I regularly produce daily content to be able to help people.
Okay.
So there's a lot of free content there that they can get access to, and there's links on there to be able to download a 90-day roadmap. So even if they didn't want any support from me personally, the best thing to do is download the roadmap, which shows them the steps that they need to take for the next 90 days that they can implement themselves. And that's a
Okay.
really good resource.
Nice. And that's all available off your LinkedIn
Yeah,
profile.
off
Okay.
my profile.
Perfect. Good job. So, and they can find out about the Systemized Sanity Framework and Sane and everything else that you've built all from there, right?
Yeah, so they can get it all from there. And if they want to have a free 30-minute clarity call, then there's um, they can find that information there as well. But I can give you the link to that, and that's just completely no pressure, no selling. Just let's find out what is actually happening. If I can help you in that 30 minutes and you walk away, I've done my with knowing what to do next, then I've done my job. Before we even look at let's try and fix your business.
Sure. Awesome. Very cool. All right. Well, I will have these links down in the show notes for everybody. Listeners, if any of you are part of a legacy business, a family run business, dental, orthodontic type practice, if you're in there and you're struggling with some of these things we've been talking about, definitely reach out to Jamie. I will have all the links down in the notes. Reach out to him. Download uh, that guide and see if that helps give you some of the answers. And if not, follow up with one of the 30-minute discovery calls. It's always good to talk to somebody who's been in the position you're in to realize, hey, it's not just me. This is systemic in these type of environments and stuff. So it's nice to be able to talk to somebody and work your way out of it. So definitely do that. Jamie, thanks again for being on the program. Appreciate it.
Oh, pleasure.
And
Thank you.
yeah, listeners, hope you guys are taking a lot of notes. Good information here. Share this episode with your family, friends, colleagues, and stick around because there's always more coming. That's it for me, Coach Harlan saying so long for now.